In the closed-in night, the wind blows hard over the top of an abandoned building. Tied with ropes, a policeman is dragged to the edge of the roof by criminals. The group, in a frenzy, yells that the time has come to get rid of him. Without reacting, the policeman keeps his gaze fixed while the gang leader raises his hand for the final push. A deep growl breaks the silence. A police dog emerges from the shadows of the rooftop. For a moment, the bandits turn, hesitating before the crouched figure on the concrete. The policeman remains on the edge of the abyss, a breath away from falling, and in that second, everything seems to stop. Do you love stories with animals? Then subscribe now and don't miss any. Thanks for joining us. Now, we return to our story. The night stretched over Chicago like a heavy blanket, and atop an abandoned warehouse building, surrounded by darkness and the merciless wind that whipped across the rooftop, Detective Marcus Thompson found himself at a serious disadvantage. His hands were bound behind his back, pressed against the edge of the rooftop, hearing only the firm voices filled with resentment from those who surrounded him. For them, this would be the moment to eliminate once and for all the biggest obstacle in their path. An enemy who had unraveled their plans and disrupted their business dealings. But what seemed predetermined was about to take unexpected turns as a silent presence approached through the shadows of the rooftop. Marcus had been investigating a complex case involving corporate fraud at Richardson Industries for the past 6 months. What started as a simple embezzlement case had evolved into something much more intricate, involving family betrayals, hidden partnerships, and millions of dollars in missing funds. Tonight, he had received an anonymous tip to meet at this abandoned building on the south side, supposedly to receive crucial evidence that would crack the case wide open. Instead, he had walked directly into a trap. The men who surrounded him were not common criminals, but desperate businessmen who had everything to lose if Marcus continued his investigation. James Richardson, the company's CEO, stood directly in front of him. His usually pristine business suit now wrinkled and his face twisted with a mixture of anger and desperation. Beside him stood his younger brother David, whose nervous gestures betrayed an uneasiness that contrasted sharply with James's determined demeanor. "You should have minded your own business, Thompson," James said, his voice cutting through the wind. "This investigation of yours has already cost us too much. Our family's reputation, our company's future. Everything we've built over 3 generations is at stake because you couldn't leave well enough alone." Marcus tried to maintain his composure despite the precarious situation. "James, this doesn't have to end badly for anyone. We can work something out. There are always alternatives to resolve conflicts without making things worse." But James was beyond reasoning. His resentment went deeper than just the current investigation. Years ago, Marcus had been involved in another case that had resulted in the temporary closure of one of Richardson Industries' subsidiaries. Though Marcus had simply been doing his job, James had never forgiven him for what he saw as a personal attack on his family's legacy. "Alternatives," James laughed bitterly. "The alternative is that you disappear from our lives permanently. Not permanently in the way you might think, but permanently enough that you can never interfere with our business again." The first unexpected turn of the night came when a low growl echoed among the concrete structures, drawing the attention of everyone present. It was Rex, Marcus's German Shepherd partner, who had managed to reach the location unnoticed. The confidence of the men, previously solid, wavered the instant they realized they were not as alone as they had imagined. Rex was not just any ordinary dog, but a highly trained search and rescue animal who had worked alongside Marcus for over 5 years. Their bond went beyond professional partnership. They had developed an almost telepathic understanding that had saved both their lives on multiple occasions. Tonight would be no different. How did that animal get up here? David asked nervously, taking a step back as Rex's imposing figure emerged from the shadows. James, however, was not intimidated. His resentment was too deep and personal, and the detective before him represented a frustration he had carried for years. The confrontation, which was already tense, gained psychological dimensions as the antagonist's hatred combined with the unwavering loyalty of the animal that now stood in their way. Marcus felt a surge of hope seeing his faithful companion. Rex's arrival meant that backup might not be far behind, and it also meant he had an ally in this desperate situation. The dog's intelligent eyes scanned the scene, assessing the threat level and calculating the best approach to help his human partner. "Easy there, Rex," Marcus called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm okay, boy, just stay calm." But Rex was already moving, his training kicking in as he began to circle the group of men, his low growls serving as both a warning and a distraction. The tension on the rooftop increased exponentially with each passing minute. The wind continued to intensify, making every movement more dangerous. The edge of the rooftop seemed like an abyss, ready to swallow any false step, and the combination of human desperation, animal instinct, and the quest for justice created a scenario of absolute unpredictability. David Richardson shifted uncomfortably, his loyalty to his brother beginning to show cracks under the pressure. James, maybe we should reconsider this approach. This is getting out of hand, and if something happens to the detective, we'll be in even more trouble." "Shut up, David," James snapped. "You've always been weak. This is exactly why Dad left me in charge of the company and not you. You don't have the stomach for making hard decisions." This exchange revealed another layer of complexity to the situation. The Richardson brothers had their own internal conflicts, rooted in years of sibling rivalry and corporate power struggles. David had always felt overshadowed by his more aggressive older brother, and tonight's events were pushing him toward a breaking point. Marcus observed these dynamics carefully, even in his constrained position. His years of detective work had taught him to read people and situations, and he could sense that David might be his key to resolving this standoff without anyone getting seriously hurt. The abandoned warehouse building creaked ominously in the wind, its old structure protesting against the elements. The rooftop, already compromised by years of neglect, seemed increasingly unstable under the weight of the confrontation taking place upon it. Rex continued his calculated movements, using his training to create confusion and buy time. He knocked over a piece of debris, creating a loud crash that made everyone jump and further heightened the tension. His presence had transformed what James thought would be a simple intimidation tactic into a complex and unpredictable situation. "We need to end this now," James declared, his patience wearing thin. "Thompson, you're going to promise us that you'll drop the investigation and destroy any evidence you've collected. In exchange, we'll let you walk away from here." Marcus knew that making such a promise would be meaningless, as he could never actually follow through on it. His professional integrity and sense of justice would never allow him to ignore the evidence of corporate fraud that he had uncovered. But for now, he needed to buy time and look for an opportunity to turn the situation around. The night air grew colder, and the lights of Chicago twinkled in the distance like stars, a stark contrast to the drama unfolding on the forgotten rooftop. Each person present was at a crossroads, facing decisions that would forever change their lives and relationships. The stage was set for revelations that would shake the very foundations of everything they thought they knew about loyalty, family, and justice. As tensions continued to escalate on the rooftop, Rex made his first decisive move. The German Shepherd lunged forward with calculated precision, not to attack, but to knock down a metal toolbox that had been left near the edge of the building. The crash echoed through the night, and in the momentary distraction, Marcus felt the ropes around his wrists loosen slightly. Someone had tied them hastily, and the constant wind and his subtle movements were working in his favor. David Richardson jumped at the sound, his nerves clearly frayed. "James, this is madness. We're successful businessmen, not thugs. What would Mom and Dad think if they could see us now?" James whirled around to face his younger brother, his eyes blazing with fury. "Mom and Dad are gone, David, and if we don't handle this situation, everything they built will be gone too. Thompson's investigation is going to expose the emergency loans we took to keep the company afloat after the pension fund shortfall. Do you want to see 300 employees lose their jobs because we couldn't make tough decisions?" This revelation added a new layer to the conflict. Marcus had been investigating what he thought was simple embezzlement, but the reality was more complex. The Richardson brothers had been desperately trying to save their family company and protect their employees' livelihoods. Their methods were questionable, but their motivations were not entirely selfish. "There had to be other ways," David protested, his voice growing stronger. "Legal ways. We could have worked with investigators, been transparent about our financial difficulties. Instead, you chose to hide the truth, and now we're here, threatening a police detective on a rooftop." Marcus seized the moment to interject. "David's right, James. I've seen companies recover from worse financial situations by being honest about their problems and working with authorities to find solutions. Intimidation and cover-ups only make things worse." Rex continued to circle the group, his intelligent eyes constantly monitoring the situation. The dog's presence was having a psychological effect on everyone present, reminding them that this confrontation could escalate beyond anyone's control. His low growls served as a constant reminder that he was ready to protect his partner at any cost. James Richardson's facade of control was beginning to crack. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. For 5 years, I've been holding this company together with sheer willpower. The financial crisis hit us hard, and then Dad's medical bills depleted our reserves. I made decisions I'm not proud of, but I made them to save jobs and preserve our family's legacy." The wind intensified, causing loose papers and debris to swirl around the rooftop. The old building groaned under the pressure, and Marcus began to worry about the structural integrity of their precarious perch. He had noticed cracks in the concrete near the edge where he was positioned, and the constant vibrations from the wind were making them worse. "James," Marcus said carefully, "I can see you're in a difficult position, but this approach isn't solving anything. If you let me go and we work together, I might be able to help you find legal alternatives to address your company's problems." But James was too far gone in his desperation to listen to reason. "Help? Like you helped when you shut down our subsidiary 5 years ago. That closure cost us millions and damaged our reputation with investors. I've waited years for a chance to get even with you, Thompson." David's expression changed as he processed this information. "Wait, James, you mean this isn't just about the current investigation? You planned this because of something that happened 5 years ago?" His voice carried a mixture of shock and disappointment. The revelation that James's actions were driven by personal vendetta rather than just protecting the company created a rift between the brothers. David had supported his brother, believing they were fighting for their employees and family business, but now he realized there was a deeper, more personal motivation at play. Rex sensed the changing dynamics and moved closer to Marcus, positioning himself between his partner and the Richardson brothers. The dog's training told him that internal conflicts among his partner's captors could create opportunities for escape, but he also recognized that the situation was becoming increasingly unstable. Marcus continued working on loosening his restraints while keeping the conversation going. "James, that subsidiary was shut down because of safety violations that put workers at risk. I was protecting people, just like I'm trying to protect your employees now by investigating financial irregularities." "Safety violations?" James scoffed. "Those were minor issues that could have been resolved with time and proper investment. But no, You had to make a big show of it. Bring in the media, turn it into a public spectacle that humiliated our family. David stepped closer to his brother, his posture more confrontational than before. You never told me about any personal history with Detective Thompson. I thought we were here because he was threatening our company's survival, not because you wanted revenge for something that happened years ago. The sibling tension was reaching a breaking point. Years of David living in James's shadow, following his lead without question, were coming to an end. The younger Richardson brother was finally asserting himself, questioning decisions that had led them to this dangerous precipice. Everything I've done has been for this family and this company, James insisted. But his voice lacked the conviction it had earlier. Sometimes, personal justice and business interests align perfectly. Rex suddenly alertly raised his head, his ears perked up as he heard something in the distance. His enhanced hearing had picked up the sound of vehicles approaching the building. Marcus recognized his partner's posture and realized that help might be on the way. Whether it was police backup or just late-night security, the presence of others could change the dynamics of their situation. James, we need to end this now, David said urgently. I hear something too. People are coming, and if we're found up here with Detective Thompson tied up, our problems will multiply exponentially. The pressure was mounting from all sides. The unstable building, the approaching sounds, the internal family conflict, and Rex's unwavering presence were creating a perfect storm of tension. Marcus could feel his restraints loosening further, but he needed just a little more time to free himself completely. James looked around wildly, realizing that his carefully planned confrontation was spiraling out of control. What was supposed to be a simple intimidation tactic had become a complex situation involving multiple variables he couldn't control. The sound of approaching vehicles was getting closer, and he knew they had only minutes before their window of opportunity closed forever. We stick to the original plan, James declared desperately. Thompson agrees to drop the investigation, and we all walk away from this. But David had reached his limit. No, James, this ends now. I won't be part of threatening an innocent person because of your personal grudges. He moved toward Marcus, clearly intending to help free him. David, don't! James shouted, lunging forward to stop his brother. Rex reacted instantly to the sudden movement, placing himself between the Richardson brothers and Marcus. The German Shepherd's training kicked in fully as he assessed the rapidly changing threat levels. His bark echoed across the rooftop, a sharp warning that reverberated through the night air. The confrontation had reached a critical juncture. Family loyalties were crumbling, personal motivations were being exposed, and the arrival of unknown parties was adding pressure to an already volatile situation. On the windswept rooftop of an abandoned Chicago warehouse, 4 lives were about to be forever changed by the decisions made in the next few crucial moments. The chaos erupted in seconds. As James lunged toward David to prevent him from helping Marcus, Rex interpreted the sudden movement as an attack on his territory. The German Shepherd positioned himself strategically, using his body weight to create a barrier between the conflicting parties. His training had prepared him for exactly this type of situation, where multiple threats converged simultaneously. David managed to reach Marcus despite his brother's interference. "Detective, let me help you," he said, his hands trembling as he worked on the ropes. "This has gone too far. James has lost perspective, and I won't be part of this anymore." "David, you're making the biggest mistake of your life," James shouted over the wind. "If Thompson continues his investigation, everything our family worked for will disappear. The Richardson name will be synonymous with failure and bankruptcy." Marcus felt the ropes finally give way as David's fingers worked frantically to untie the knots. The circulation returned to his hands with a painful tingling sensation, but he was grateful to have his mobility back. "Thank you, David. You're doing the right thing." The sound of vehicles was getting closer. and now they could see headlights cutting through the darkness at the base of the building. Rex's alert posture confirmed that multiple people were approaching, though it was still unclear whether they were friend or foe. James Richardson stood at the edge of the rooftop, his business suit whipping in the wind, looking like a man who had lost everything he cared about. His brother had betrayed him, his carefully laid plan had failed, and his last chance to control the narrative of his family's downfall was slipping away. "You don't understand what you've done." "David," James said, his voice now carrying a note of genuine sadness rather than anger, "I wasn't just protecting our financial interests. I was protecting our father's memory, our mother's legacy, everything that made the Richardson name mean something in this city." David approached his brother cautiously, his expression softening slightly as he recognized the pain behind James's desperate actions. "I understand you feel responsible for preserving Dad's legacy, but this isn't what he would have wanted. He built this company on integrity and honest business practices. What we were doing here tonight goes against everything he taught us." Marcus stood slowly, testing his balance after being restrained for so long. Rex immediately moved to his side, offering support and reassurance through his presence. The detective observed the family drama unfolding before him with professional interest, recognizing that the real resolution to this conflict lay in healing the relationship between the brothers rather than in punishment or revenge. "James," Marcus said carefully, "David is right about your father. I remember him from the few times our paths crossed professionally. He was known throughout the city as a man who played by the rules and treated his employees like family. He wouldn't want his sons destroying each other over business problems." The approaching vehicles had reached the building, and the sound of car doors slamming echoed up to the rooftop. Voices could be heard in the distance, though the words were unclear over the wind. Rex's posture remained alert but not aggressive, suggesting that the newcomers weren't immediate threats. James turned to face his brother and Marcus, his shoulders sagging with the weight of defeat. "RD, 5 years ago, when Thompson shut down our subsidiary, I promised myself I would find a way to get even. I let that promise consume me, influence every business decision, every family interaction. I realize now that I've been fighting the wrong battle." David stepped closer to his brother, reaching out tentatively. "It's not too late to change course, James. We can work with Detective Thompson to find legal solutions to our problems. The company might survive. And even if it doesn't, our relationship as brothers is more important than any business." The emotional breakthrough between the siblings was interrupted by the appearance of a security guard at the roof access door. The elderly man emerged cautiously, flashlight in hand, clearly not expecting to find anyone on the abandoned building's rooftop. "What's going on up here?" the guard called out, squinting in the darkness. "I got reports of suspicious activity and vehicles in the area." Marcus quickly identified himself. "Detective Thompson, Chicago PD. We have a situation here that's being resolved peacefully. Are there other officers with you?" "No, sir, just me doing my rounds. But I called it in when I saw the cars. Backup should be here soon if you need it." Rex relaxed slightly at the guard's non-threatening demeanor, but remained vigilant. The German Shepherd's training had taught him that situations could change rapidly, and he wouldn't lower his guard until his partner was completely safe. James Richardson looked around at the assembled group, realizing that his window for controlling the situation had completely closed. "Detective, what happens now? Do you arrest me for kidnapping? Assault? How does this story end?" Marcus considered his options carefully. While James had clearly committed serious offenses by restraining him and making threats, the detective could see that the man was acting out of desperation rather than malice. The intervention of his brother and the emotional revelations had shown that there was hope for rehabilitation rather than just punishment. "That depends on several factors, James," Marcus replied. "Your willingness to cooperate with the ongoing investigation, your commitment to making things right with your company and employees, and your relationship with your brother going forward." David looked hopefully between Marcus and James. "Detective, if my brother agrees to full cooperation and transparency, would you consider alternative approaches to resolving this situation? I know what he did tonight was wrong, but I also know he's not really a violent person. He's just been under tremendous pressure for too long." The wind continued to batter the rooftop, but the emotional storm between the brothers seemed to be calming. James appeared to be processing the events of the evening, weighing his options and considering the consequences of his actions. "I need guarantees," James said finally. "If I cooperate fully with your investigation, if I provide complete transparency about our financial situation, will you help us find ways to minimize the impact on our employees? They don't deserve to suffer because of my poor decisions." Marcus nodded slowly. "I can't make promises about the ultimate outcome, but I can guarantee that employee welfare will be a priority in any resolution we work toward. There are programs and resources available to help companies in financial distress, but they require honest cooperation and full disclosure." Rex suddenly perked up again, his attention drawn to new sounds from below. This time, the distinctive sound of police sirens could be heard approaching the building. The security guards' call for backup had clearly been taken seriously, and the situation was about to become much more official. "Looks like we'll have company soon," the security guard observed. "Probably better if everyone stays calm and lets the officers sort this out properly." David placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "James, this is your chance to do the right thing. Dad always said that a man's character is defined not by his mistakes, but by how he handles them afterward." The sirens grew louder, and the red and blue lights could be seen reflecting off nearby buildings. Rex moved closer to Marcus, ready to provide identification and assistance to the arriving officers. The German Shepherd's training included working with multiple law enforcement agencies, and he knew how to behave during official police responses. James Richardson took a deep breath, looking out over the Chicago skyline one last time before turning to face whatever consequences awaited him. "Detective Thompson, I want to make a full confession and provide complete cooperation with your investigation, not because I'm afraid of going to jail, but because it's what my father would have expected from me." The emotional weight of the moment was palpable as the three men and faithful dog stood on the windswept rooftop, each contemplating how dramatically their lives had changed in just a few hours. The approaching police officers would formalize the resolution, but the real healing had already begun through honesty, family reconciliation, and the recognition that integrity was more valuable than any business success. The police officers arrived on the rooftop with professional efficiency, led by Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, a veteran officer who had worked with Marcus on several previous cases. Her presence immediately brought a sense of order to the chaotic situation, and Rex responded to her familiar scent and demeanor with a relaxed tail wag. "Marcus, are you all right?" Sergeant Rodriguez asked, quickly assessing the scene while her partner, Officer Johnson, secured the area. We got word about suspicious activity and possible threats to an officer." "I'm fine, Maria," Marcus replied, gratefully accepting a bottle of water from one of the officers. "The situation has been resolved peacefully, thanks to Rex here and some unexpected cooperation from David Richardson." James Richardson stepped forward, his hands raised slightly to show he posed no threat. "Sergeant, I'm James Richardson, CEO of Richardson Industries. I want to make a full statement about tonight's events and confess to restraining Detective Thompson against his will." Sergeant Rodriguez looked between Marcus and the Richardson brothers, clearly trying to piece together the complex dynamics at play. "This is unusual. Most suspects don't volunteer confessions before we even ask questions." David Richardson moved to stand beside his brother, showing solidarity despite their earlier conflict. "Sergeant, my brother made serious mistakes tonight, but he's committed to making things right. We both are. The security guard who had discovered them provided his account of events, explaining how he had found the group already in the process of resolving their differences. His testimony would be crucial in establishing that no ongoing threat existed and that the situation had de-escalated naturally. Rex positioned himself between Marcus and the others, maintaining his protective stance while showing that he no longer perceived the Richardson brothers as threats. The German Shepherd's behavior was often used by officers as an indicator of danger levels, and his relaxed but alert posture suggested the immediate crisis had passed. "James," Marcus said, "before you make any formal statements, I want you to understand something important. During my investigation of Richardson Industries, I discovered information that puts your company's situation in a different light." All eyes turned to Marcus as he prepared to reveal information that would change everyone's understanding of the events leading to this rooftop confrontation. Even Sergeant Rodriguez paused her note-taking to listen carefully. "The financial irregularities I was investigating weren't simple embezzlement, as I initially thought," Marcus continued. They were desperate attempts to cover emergency expenditures related to your father's medical care and your mother's extended rehabilitation after her accident. You weren't stealing from the company. You were trying to save it while dealing with personal family crises." James stared at Marcus in shock. "How did you—" "We tried so hard to keep those expenses separate from company business. Your accounting was actually quite sophisticated," Marcus acknowledged. "But there were patterns in the transactions that suggested personal rather than corporate motivations. Insurance claims, medical facility payments, specialized equipment purchases. They all pointed to family medical emergencies rather than personal enrichment." David looked at his brother with new understanding. "James, why didn't you tell me about the extent of Dad's expenses? I knew they were significant, but I had no idea you were using company funds to cover what insurance wouldn't pay for." "I couldn't," James said quietly. "As CEO, I felt responsible for finding solutions without burdening you or our employees. When Dad needed experimental treatments that weren't covered by his policy, I made executive decisions to temporarily borrow from company accounts. I always intended to pay it back once we secured additional financing." Sergeant Rodriguez exchanged glances with Marcus, recognizing that this case was far more complex than a simple assault or kidnapping situation. The family dynamics and business pressures had created a perfect storm of circumstances that led to tonight's confrontation. "The real tragedy," Marcus continued, "is that there were legal alternatives available. There are hardship programs, medical loan options, and even federal assistance for companies facing family medical crises. If you had reached out for help instead of trying to handle everything alone, none of this would have been necessary." Rex suddenly became alert again, not because of danger, but because he sensed something important happening among the humans around him. His training had taught him to recognize emotional breakthrough moments, and his tail began wagging as he felt the tension continuing to decrease. Officer Johnson finished securing the rooftop area and joined the conversation. "From a legal standpoint, what we have here is a situation where the alleged victim is advocating for the suspect. Family reconciliation is taking place and restitution appears possible. It's not often we see cases resolve themselves so constructively." James Richardson looked directly at Marcus, his expression showing genuine remorse mixed with gratitude. "Detective, I owe you an enormous apology. My actions tonight were inexcusable, regardless of my motivations. I let my fear and pride cloud my judgment, and I nearly destroyed everything that matters most to me." "The important thing is what happens next," Marcus replied. "Your willingness to take responsibility and work towards solutions shows that this experience can be a turning point rather than a tragic ending." David stepped closer to his brother. "James, from now on, we handle everything together. No more trying to protect me from difficult decisions or carrying burdens alone. We're partners in this business and in this family. The emotional reconciliation between the brothers was witnessed by everyone present, creating a powerful moment that transcended the legal and business aspects of their situation. Even the hardened police officers were moved by the genuine affection and commitment the siblings showed toward each other. Sergeant Rodriguez began outlining the next steps in the process. James, you'll need to come to the station to make a formal statement. Marcus, we'll need your account of events as well. Given the circumstances and the cooperation we're seeing, I expect the district attorney will be open to discussing alternative resolutions that focus on restitution and rehabilitation rather than punishment. The security guard offered additional perspective. I've been working this beat for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of situations end badly because people couldn't communicate effectively. What happened here tonight is rare, people actually talking through their problems and finding solutions. Rex moved to Marcus's side, sensing that the formal part of the evening was beginning and that his protective duties were transitioning to support duties. The German Shepherd had played a crucial role in de-escalating the situation, providing the distraction and time necessary for emotions to cool and rational thinking to prevail. "Gee, there's one more thing," Marcus said, addressing both brothers. "Richardson Industries has valuable assets and strong employee loyalty. With proper financial restructuring and transparent management, the company could not only survive, but thrive. I'd like to connect you with specialists who help businesses recover from crisis situations." James's eyes filled with tears of relief and gratitude. "After everything I put you through tonight, you're still offering to help save our company and protect our employees. That's what justice really means," Marcus replied. "Not just punishment for wrongdoing, but working towards solutions that help everyone involved build better futures." The wind had died down considerably, and the Chicago skyline looked peaceful in the distance. The abandoned warehouse rooftop, which had been the scene of such intense conflict just hours earlier, now felt like a place where healing and new beginnings were possible. As the group prepared to leave the rooftop and move the discussion to more official venues, each person reflected on how dramatically the night had changed their perspectives. James had learned that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. David had discovered his own voice and leadership capabilities. Marcus had seen justice served through reconciliation rather than retribution. And Rex had once again proven that loyalty and training could overcome any obstacle. 3 weeks after the rooftop confrontation, Marcus Thompson sat in his downtown Chicago office reviewing case files when Rex alerted him to visitors approaching. The German Shepherd's tail wagged enthusiastically, a sign that he recognized and approved of whoever was coming. When the door opened, David and James Richardson entered, both looking significantly healthier and more optimistic than they had that dramatic night. "Detective Thompson," James said, extending his hand formally, "I wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done for our family and our company over the past few weeks." Marcus stood to greet them, noting the remarkable transformation in both men. James had regained some of the confident bearing that had made him a successful CEO, while David showed a new maturity and assertiveness that suggested he was taking a more active role in company leadership. "The thanks should go to both of you," Marcus replied. "Your willingness to be completely transparent and work cooperatively with all the agencies involved made all the difference in reaching a positive resolution." Rex moved between the visitors, accepting ear scratches and showing the affection he had developed for the Richardson brothers during the frequent meetings of recent weeks. The dog's acceptance of them as friends rather than threats was a powerful symbol of how completely the dynamics had changed. David pulled out a folder containing official documents. "We wanted to share some good news with you. The financial restructuring plan has been approved by all our creditors." And we've secured bridge financing that will allow us to maintain full employment while we implement the recovery strategy. The paperwork told a remarkable story of corporate recovery and family healing. James had stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic planning and external relationships, while David had assumed the role of Chief Operating Officer with full authority over internal management. The division of responsibilities played to each brother's strengths and eliminated the power struggles that had contributed to their problems. The employee response has been incredible, James added. When we held the company-wide meeting to explain the situation and apologize for the secrecy, instead of anger or fear, we received overwhelming support. Several long-term employees even offered to defer their own compensation to help with cash flow during the transition. Marcus was pleased but not surprised by this development. During his investigation, he had observed the genuine loyalty and respect that Richardson Industries employees felt toward their leadership. The company's family-oriented culture, established by the brothers' father, had created bonds that went beyond simple employment relationships. "There's something else," David said, his expression becoming more serious. "We've established a foundation in our parents' memory to help other families facing medical crises. Part of the foundation's mission is to educate business owners about legal alternatives for handling family emergencies that affect their companies." This initiative represented a profound transformation of James's perspective. Instead of hiding his family's struggles with medical expenses, he was now using their experience to help others avoid similar pitfalls. The foundation would provide grants, counseling, and resource connections for families caught between personal crises and business responsibilities. Rex positioned himself near the window, where he could observe the street below while remaining part of the conversation. His training had taught him to maintain awareness of his surroundings, even during social interactions, and his presence continued to provide Marcus with an additional sense of security. "The legal proceedings have been finalized as well," James reported. "The district attorney accepted our plea agreement, and I'll be performing community service with small business mentorship programs. It's actually work I find very fulfilling, helping other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes I made." The resolution had been creative and constructive, focusing on education and prevention rather than punishment. James's experience with corporate crisis management, combined with his newfound commitment to transparency and communication, made him an ideal mentor for other business owners facing similar challenges. Marcus reviewed the case files spread across his desk, reflecting on how unusual and ultimately satisfying this investigation had become. "You know, in my 15 years as a detective, I've rarely seen a case where everyone involved came out better than they started. Usually, investigations result in justice being served, but not necessarily in healing and growth. That's because you went beyond just doing your job," David observed. "You could have pressed charges to the fullest extent and walked away. Instead, you invested time and energy in understanding our situation and helping us find constructive solutions." The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the office door. Sergeant Rodriguez entered, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing the satisfied expression of an officer who had just finished successfully closing a complex case. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she said, noting the Richardson brothers' presence. "I just wanted to let Marcus know that the final paperwork has been processed and filed. Officially, this case is now closed with all parties satisfied with the resolution." Rex greeted Sergeant Rodriguez with the same enthusiasm he had shown the Richardson brothers, confirming that she was firmly established in his circle of trusted humans. The German Shepherd's social connections had expanded significantly since the Rooftop incident, reflecting the broader network of relationships that had formed around the case. Sergeant Rodriguez was instrumental in facilitating the alternative resolution process, Marcus explained to the brothers. Her recommendation to the district attorney carried significant weight in getting approval for the community service agreement. James turned to address the sergeant directly. "Officer, I want you to know that your professionalism and compassion that night on the rooftop helped prevent what could have been a much more tragic outcome. You treated us with dignity even when we didn't deserve it." "That's what good policing is about," Sergeant Rodriguez replied. "Sometimes the best way to serve and protect the community is to help people find ways to solve their problems without making them worse." The discussion turned to long-term plans and ongoing relationships. The Richardson brothers had expressed interest in working with the police department on business ethics seminars and crisis prevention workshops. Their experience provided valuable real-world examples of how good people could make poor decisions under pressure, and how early intervention could prevent minor problems from becoming major crises. "We've also been in touch with the families of our employees," David reported. Several of them shared stories about their own struggles with medical expenses and financial pressures. "We're working to establish better support systems within the company to help people get assistance before they reach crisis points." This development highlighted one of the most positive outcomes of the entire situation. The transparency and vulnerability that James had initially feared would destroy the company had actually strengthened it by creating deeper connections between management and employees. The shared experience of overcoming adversity had transformed Richardson Industries into a more resilient and compassionate organization. Marcus looked at Rex, who was now dozing peacefully in a patch of afternoon sunlight, completely relaxed in the presence of former adversaries who had become friends. The German Shepherd's transformation mirrored the broader healing that had taken place among all the humans involved in the case. "There is one more surprise," James said, reaching into his briefcase. "The board of directors has approved a donation to the police department's K9 unit in Rex's honor. His intervention that night was crucial in preventing the situation from escalating beyond anyone's control. The donation would fund training equipment and veterinary care for police dogs throughout the city, ensuring that other four-legged officers would have the resources they needed to protect and serve their human partners. It was a fitting tribute to Rex's role in the case and a lasting symbol of the positive changes that had emerged from such a difficult beginning. As the meeting concluded, each person reflected on the journey that had brought them from that windswept rooftop to this comfortable office filled with mutual respect and genuine friendship. The case had proven that justice could be restorative rather than purely punitive, and that understanding and communication could transform enemies into allies. The bonds formed through shared adversity had created relationships that would endure long after the official case files were closed and stored away. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning in Chicago, Marcus Thompson stood on the same rooftop where his life had intersected so dramatically with the Richardson family. The abandoned warehouse had since been purchased by Richardson Industries and was being renovated into a community center that would house the Medical Crisis Foundation and provide meeting spaces for support groups. The transformation was remarkable, turning a place of conflict into a symbol of hope and healing. Rex bounded up the stairs ahead of Marcus, his tail wagging as he explored the construction area with the enthusiasm of a dog who remembered this place as the site of one of his most important missions. The German Shepherd had been promoted within the K9 unit and now served as a training mentor for younger police dogs, but he still maintained his primary partnership with Marcus. "Hard to believe this is the same place," David Richardson said, joining them on the rooftop. He was wearing a hard hat and carrying blueprints, his new role as Chief Operating Officer clearly suiting him well. "When we first bought this building, James worried that the memories would be too painful. Now he says it's the perfect location because it represents transformation and second chances. The view from the rooftop offered a panoramic perspective of Chicago, with Lake Michigan stretching to the horizon and the downtown skyline rising majestically in the distance. The city looked different to Marcus now, not just because of the changing season, but because his understanding of justice and human nature had evolved through his experience with the Richardson family. Speaking of James, how is he adjusting to his new role? Marcus asked, referring to James's transition from CEO to chairman of the board, a position that allowed him to focus on strategic vision while giving David operational control. He's thriving, David replied with obvious pride in his brother. The mentorship program he's running has helped over 50 small business owners navigate crisis situations without resorting to desperate measures. He says he's finally found a way to honor our father's legacy that feels authentic and meaningful. Rex discovered a new tennis ball that had been left by construction workers and brought it to Marcus, his playful demeanor a stark contrast to the serious circumstances that had brought them all together on this rooftop for the first time. The dog's ability to live fully in the present moment served as a constant reminder to the humans around him about the importance of embracing joy whenever possible. The sound of footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of James Richardson, accompanied by Sergeant Rodriguez and a group of visitors who were touring the facility. The group included small business owners, family counselors, and representatives from various support organizations who would be utilizing the community center once construction was completed. "Marcus, perfect timing!" James called out, his voice carrying none of the desperation and anger that had characterized their first meeting in this location. It was just telling our visitors about how this project grew out of one of the most challenging and ultimately transformative nights of my life. The visitors gathered around as James began sharing the story of that dramatic evening, speaking candidly about his mistakes, his brother's courage in standing up to him, Marcus's commitment to finding constructive solutions, and Rex's crucial role in preventing the situation from escalating beyond control. His willingness to be vulnerable and honest about his failures had become one of his greatest strengths as a mentor and advocate. "The most important lesson I learned," James continued, "is that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. If I had reached out when our family first faced medical crises instead of trying to handle everything alone, none of us would have ended up on this rooftop in such desperate circumstances." Sergeant Rodriguez added her perspective as a law enforcement professional. "This case taught our entire department about the power of restorative justice. Instead of simply processing arrests and moving on to the next call, we took time to understand the underlying causes of the conflict and work towards solutions that addressed everyone's needs." The tour group was clearly moved by the story and the evidence of positive change that surrounded them. Several business owners shared their own experiences with family crises and financial pressures, creating connections and support networks that would extend far beyond the formal programs offered by the foundation. Rex, sensing the emotional weight of the conversation, moved among the group, offering comfort and affection to anyone who seemed to need it. His intuitive understanding of human emotions had made him not just an excellent police dog, but also a natural therapy animal who could provide support in various settings. As the tour group moved on to explore other areas of the building, Marcus, David, James, and Sergeant Rodriguez remained on the rooftop to share a more personal conversation. The four of them had developed a deep friendship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to helping others avoid similar crises. "I have some news to share," Marcus announced. "The police department has approved my proposal for a new crisis intervention unit that combines traditional detective work with social services and business counseling. The Richardson Foundation has agreed to provide funding and expertise for the pilot program. This development represented the institutionalization of the collaborative approach that had proven so successful in resolving their own conflict. Instead of treating symptoms, the new unit would address underlying causes of business-related legal problems, potentially preventing countless situations from escalating to criminal behavior. "That's incredible," David said. "And it means that other families won't have to go through what we experienced. They'll have resources and support available before they reach the point of desperation." James nodded thoughtfully. "Our parents would be so proud to know that their memory is being honored through programs that help other families stay together and solve problems constructively. It gives meaning to all the pain and struggle we went through." Rex suddenly became alert. His ears perked up and his body language indicating that he sensed something important happening. The group looked around to see what had captured his attention and saw a young couple approaching with a small child, all of them looking somewhat hesitant and uncertain. "Excuse me," the woman called out. "We're looking for the Richardson Foundation offices. Our family is going through some financial difficulties because of medical expenses, and we heard that there might be programs here that could help us." The synchronicity of the moment was not lost on anyone present. Here, on the very rooftop where desperation had nearly led to tragedy, a family was seeking help through the proper channels and finding the support that the Richardson brothers wished they had known about during their own crisis. David immediately stepped forward to assist the family, his natural empathy and hard-won experience making him the perfect person to provide initial guidance and reassurance. "You've come to exactly the right place," he said warmly. "Let us help you explore all the options available to your family." As David led the young family toward the building entrance, James turned to Marcus with tears in his eyes. "Do you see what you've created here? That family won't have to choose between their loved one's health and their financial stability. They won't have to make the mistakes I made." Marcus felt a profound sense of satisfaction, not just as a detective who had solved a case, but as a human being who had helped transform a destructive situation into something that would benefit countless others. "We all created this together, James. Your willingness to learn from your mistakes." David's courage in standing up for what was right, Sergeant Rodriguez's commitment to restorative justice, it was a team effort. Rex moved to Marcus's side, sensing that this was a moment of completion and new beginning. The German Shepherd had been present for every crucial moment of this journey, from the initial confrontation through the healing and transformation that followed. His unwavering loyalty and protective instincts had provided the foundation of safety and trust that allowed everyone involved to take the risks necessary for growth and change. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. The city lights were beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk, and the rooftop that had once been a place of conflict and desperation was now peaceful and filled with hope for the future. "Do you know," Sergeant Rodriguez observed, "when I tell this story to other officers, they're always amazed by how it turned out. Most police cases end with arrests, trials, and someone going to jail. This one ended with a foundation, a community center, and lifelong friendships. That's because we chose to see each other as human beings, rather than just as adversaries," Marcus replied. "When we focus on understanding and healing rather than just punishment, amazing things become possible." As the group prepared to leave the rooftop and return to their respective lives and responsibilities, each person carried with them a deep appreciation for the power of redemption, forgiveness, and collaborative problem-solving. The Richardson Foundation would continue to grow and help families in crisis. The Police Crisis Intervention Unit would prevent other desperate situations. And the bonds of friendship forged through shared adversity would endure for years to come. Rex gave one final look around the rooftop, as if committing the scene to memory, before following Marcus toward the stairs. The German shepherd had learned that sometimes the most important victories came not from defeating enemies, but from transforming them into friends and allies in the ongoing work of making the world a better place. The story that began with conflict and desperation had evolved into one of hope, healing, and the incredible potential for positive change that exists within every human heart when given the right opportunities and support. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Marcus, James, David, and the faithful Rex has moved and inspired you. This tale of transformation reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there is always hope for redemption and new beginnings. To continue this emotional journey with us, we've prepared a special playlist featuring equally captivating stories of human resilience and the power of second chances. You can find it by clicking to your left. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring you unique stories that explore the complexity of life, the bonds that unite us, and the extraordinary capacity we all have for growth and forgiveness. Don't miss our upcoming content, and we look forward to hearing from you in the comments below.